Let me talk to you today about something that I think genuinely matters, not as a performance, not as content, but as a real conversation between someone who cares and someone who needs to hear that they are going to be okay. Because if you clicked on this, if something in the title made you stop scrolling, then there is probably something you are carrying right now that is heavier than usual. And I want to talk about that honestly. First, let me acknowledge what you are actually going through, because I think one of the most unhelpful things a message like this can do is skip past the reality of what is hard and go straight to the reassurance, as if the reassurance is more important than the person receiving it. It is not. You are more important, and your actual situation, whatever it is, however specific and personal and heavy it is, deserves to be acknowledged before anything else is said. Some of you are facing financial pressure that is genuinely serious, not the mild inconvenience of a tighter month, but the specific keeping you up at night, I do not know how this works out kind of pressure, where the numbers do not add up, where you have already cut what can be cut and it is still not enough, where the gap between what is coming in and what needs to go out feels impossible to close by any reasonable means. That is real, and I am not going to tell you it is not hard. It is hard. Some of you are facing health concerns, yours or someone you love. The specific fear that comes from uncertainty about your body or the body of someone who matters more to you than your own comfort. The waiting room anxiety, the test results that have not come yet, the diagnosis that arrived and changed the shape of everything, the long treatment that is working but is also exhausting in ways that are hard to explain to people who have not been through it. That is real, and it is heavy in ways that require more than a verse and a positive thought. Some of you are facing relational loss or pain, a relationship that ended when you did not want it to, a person who left in a way that left questions that may never be fully answered, a family situation that has fractured in ways that affect every holiday, every ordinary moment, every interaction that happens against the backdrop of what broke, a loneliness that exists, not because you are literally alone, but because the specific kind of being known that you need is not currently available. That is real, and it deserves to be named before it is answered. Some of you are facing the particular exhaustion of someone who has been strong for a very long time, who has been showing up, managing, providing, holding things together for so long that the reserves are genuinely low, not burned out in a trendy sense, actually depleted, running on something that is closer to momentum than genuine energy, and wondering quietly, what happens when this runs out? Who holds things together then? That is real, and it is the kind of real that does not get better from trying harder. I named those things not to deepen the weight, but to say clearly, I see that this is actually hard. Not theoretically hard, specifically hard, in the specific ways that your specific life is hard right now. And the message that God will take care of you is not a dismissal of that hardness. It is a genuine response to it. Now let me talk about what that message actually means, because God will take care of you is one of the most powerful things that can be said to a person, but it is also one of the most misused. It gets deployed sometimes in a way that functions more as a conversation stopper than as genuine comfort, as if saying God will take care of you is an excuse not to actually be present with someone in the reality of what they are facing. I do not want to do that today. I want to explore honestly what it actually means, what the care of God actually looks like in a real life facing real difficulty. The care of God is not the absence of difficulty. That is perhaps the most important thing to establish at the outset, because one of the quiet beliefs that makes difficulty so hard to carry is the belief that difficulty is evidence of the absence of care. That if God were really taking care of you, if He were really present, really involved, really concerned with your well-being, the hard thing would not be happening, or it would already be resolved, or it would at least feel different from the inside. But that belief, however understandable, however natural it is for human beings to form, is not consistent with what we actually see in the lives of the people closest to God throughout human history. The people who were most faithfully cared for by God throughout Scripture were not the people whose lives were most free of difficulty. They were the people who went through the most significant difficulties and found God genuinely present within them, not rescuing them from every hard thing, but with them through it, providing what was needed in the moment it was needed, sustaining when sustaining was required, redirecting when redirection was the right move, bringing through what could not have been survived alone. That is what the care of God actually looks like, not a shield from difficulty, a presence within it. Now let me talk about what that presence actually provides. Because presence alone, abstract, vague, God is with you presence, is not always what a person in genuine difficulty needs to hear. They need to understand what the presence actually does, what it actually provides, what it actually changes about the experience of what is hard. The first thing the presence of God provides is peace that is not dependent on resolution. This is perhaps the most remarkable thing about genuine faith in genuinely difficult circumstances, the specific peace that exists alongside unresolved things, that does not wait for the situation to improve before it becomes available. That is present in the middle of the hard thing, not as denial of it, not as pretending it is not happening, but as a genuine stabilizing force that operates at a level beneath the circumstances. The peace that Paul described as passing understanding, the peace that does not make logical sense, given what is happening, is real. It has been experienced by real people in genuinely terrible circumstances, people facing loss, people in physical pain, people with unanswered questions, people in situations that did not resolve the way they hoped. And the peace they found, the specific, this does not make sense given everything, genuinely stabilizing peace was not the product of their situation improving. It was the product of genuine connection with a God whose peace does not require the circumstances to be peaceful first. The second thing the presence of God provides is strength that does not come from reserves, because one of the real problems with the kind of exhaustion some of you are facing, the long-term, reserve-depleting, genuinely running low exhaustion, is that every human solution requires something you do not have. Rest requires margin. Replenishment requires resources. Recovery requires time. And you may not have any of those things in adequate supply right now. The strength that God provides is different from what rest produces. It is not strength that comes from recovery. It is strength that comes through, that operates when the reserves are genuinely low, that carries what cannot be carried by depleted human resources, that shows up in the specific moment when the person has nothing left and yet somehow keeps going. Isaiah described it as mounting up with wings like eagles, as running and not growing weary, walking and not fainting. That is not the language of someone whose circumstances improved and then found them strong again. That is the language of someone whose strength was being supplied from outside themselves. That supply is real, and it is available to the person who has nothing left and knows it. The third thing the presence of God provides is perspective that the situation cannot supply. Because when you are inside a hard thing, when you are surrounded by the difficulty, when your vision is filled with what is hard, it is very difficult to see what the difficulty is actually doing, what it is producing, where it is leading, whether there is something happening in the background of the hard thing that the hard thing itself does not make visible. God's perspective on your situation is not limited by what is currently visible. He sees what is being built in the difficult season. He sees what the difficulty is producing in the person going through it. He sees what comes after, not in a distant, theoretical way, but in a specific, this is what is being prepared way. And the access to that perspective, not the full view, but the genuine sense that the view exists, that the difficulty is not the whole story, that what cannot be seen from inside does not mean nothing is there, is one of the most stabilizing things available to a person in a hard season. The fourth thing the presence of God provides is company in the specific loneliness of difficulty. Because one of the most consistently painful things about genuinely hard seasons is the loneliness. Not necessarily the literal absence of people, but the specific loneliness of going through something that other people cannot fully understand or enter. The person facing a serious diagnosis can be surrounded by loving people and still experience a profound aloneness because the specific experience of what they are facing cannot be fully shared. The person carrying financial terror can be married, parented, friended, and still carry something that they cannot fully transfer into anyone else's hands. That specific, cannot be fully shared loneliness is something God's presence addresses directly, because He does not enter the situation from the outside. He is present within it, within the specific experience, within the exact place where the loneliness lives. Not as an observer who understands intellectually, but as a presence that is genuinely with. The God of the Bible is not a God who watches difficulty from a comfortable distance. He is described consistently as close to the brokenhearted, as near to those who call on Him, as a very present help in times of trouble. That nearness, that specific closeness, is what the loneliness of difficulty most needs, and it is genuinely available. Now let me talk about how to actually access what the presence of God provides, because knowing that something is available and actually receiving it are different things, and the difference between them is worth being practical about. The first thing is honesty. Genuine, nothing managed. This is actually how I feel honesty with God about where you are. Not the spiritual version of yourself, not the version that says the right things, the actual version, the tired one, the scared one, the one with the questions that do not have comfortable answers, the one that is not sure how much longer it can hold on. That version, brought honestly, without performance, without the sense that you need to clean yourself up before you come, is what genuine connection with God requires. Not eloquence, honesty, and the peace, the strength, the perspective, the company come most reliably to the person who comes honestly. The second thing is consistency over intensity. One of the patterns that makes hard seasons harder than they need to be is the pattern of approaching God only in the most acute moments, when the fear is sharpest, when the pressure is greatest, when the thing feels most impossible, and then drifting away in the slightly less acute moments. And the problem with that pattern is that the relationship with God that sustains people through long, hard seasons is not built in the acute moments. It is built in the consistent ones. The daily, often undramatic, I am here again practice of showing up honestly, even when there is nothing new to report, even when the prayer feels routine, even when the quiet does not produce anything obviously significant. That consistency, built in the ordinary moments, maintained through the unremarkable ones, is what makes the relationship strong enough to carry the weight of the genuinely acute moments. The third thing is community, because the care of God is frequently mediated through the people He places in your life, and receiving the care sometimes requires being willing to let people into what you are actually facing, rather than managing the presentation so thoroughly that the people who would help you do not know you need help. The person who carries everything alone, who has mastered the art of seeming fine, regardless of what is actually happening, is cutting off one of the primary channels through which God's care flows. Let people in, specifically the people who have demonstrated they can be trusted with what is real, and receive what they offer with genuine openness, rather than the kind of gracious deflection that says thank you for offering while ensuring that nothing is actually received. The fourth thing is gratitude. And I want to say this carefully, not as a technique for feeling better, not as a spiritual formula for shifting your mood, but as an honest practice of noticing what is actually there. Because in the middle of genuine difficulty, when the hard thing fills most of the field of vision, the things that are genuinely good, genuinely sustaining, genuinely evidence of care can become invisible. Not because they disappeared, because the hard thing took up all the visual space. Intentional gratitude, the practice of deliberately noticing what is actually there, what is genuinely good, what represents care that might otherwise go unregistered, does not make the hard things smaller, but it makes the total picture more accurate. And a more accurate picture is one in which the care of God is more visible because you are deliberately looking for it, rather than accidentally missing it, because the hard thing was louder. Now let me speak directly to some specific people, because I know that different people are carrying different things, and I want each of them to hear something specifically for them. To the person who is in genuine financial crisis, who is reading this and thinking that spiritual comfort does not pay the bills, you are right, it does not. And I am not going to tell you that faith is a substitute for practical action. What I will say is this: God's care in financial hardship frequently comes through practical doors, an opportunity that opens, a resource that appears, a connection that forms, an idea that arrives that was not there before. Stay practically engaged, do the work, pursue the options, take the steps that are available, while also staying connected to God. Because the combination of your practical effort and His ability to open doors that your effort alone cannot open is more powerful than either one alone. And do not be too proud to receive help from people, because sometimes the care of God arrives in human hands. To the person facing a health situation, yours or someone you love, I want to say simply, God is present in hospitals, in waiting rooms, in the specific fear of the night before a difficult procedure, in the long days of treatment that stretch forward without a clear end in sight. He is not absent from the medical. He works through medicine, through the hands of doctors and the research of scientists and the care of nurses. His care is not in competition with the best of what medicine can do. It operates alongside it, and the peace that is available in the middle of the uncertainty, in the middle of the fear, is real, not as a guarantee of a specific outcome, but as a genuine stabilizing presence in the middle of what cannot be controlled. To the person carrying relational pain, the specific grief of lost or broken relationship, I want to say, God sees the loneliness of that specific loss. He does not minimize it. He does not tell you to get over it quickly. He grieves with you, and He is also, quietly, in ways that may not be visible yet, working on the connections that are coming. The relationships that will be more genuinely right than the ones that broke. The community that is being positioned. The specific people who are being prepared to enter your life in a season when you will be ready to receive them. That is not a dismissal of the grief. It is a genuine hope that is consistent with who God is. To the person who is simply exhausted, who does not have a single dramatic crisis, but is just genuinely worn down by the accumulation of ordinary demands, I want to say, your exhaustion is seen. God does not only show up for the dramatic situations, He is present in the ordinary depletion, in the Tuesday morning when everything is fine and nothing is fine at the same time, in the season when the question is not whether you will survive a crisis, but whether you have the energy to keep going through the long, unremarkable, genuinely demanding ordinary. Rest is available, not always as sleep, sometimes as the specific restoration that comes from genuine connection with the God who made you and who knows exactly what you need to be genuinely replenished. Let me close honestly. God will take care of you. I believe that genuinely, not as a formula, not as a spiritual phrase that functions more as punctuation than as meaning, as a real belief about a real God who is genuinely involved in real lives facing real difficulties. The care is not always immediate. It is not always in the form expected. It does not always remove the hard thing, but it is present in the hard thing, with the person going through it, providing what is needed, peace, strength, perspective, company, in the specific measure the specific moment requires, and the person who stays connected, who comes honestly, consistently, in community, with gratitude, finds that the care is real, not theoretical, real, in the specific ways their specific life required it. Stay connected, let him take care of you. He is genuinely good at it. If this video reached something real in you today, share it with someone who is carrying something heavy and needs to hear that they are not carrying it alone. Comment below, what is the one thing you need to trust God with today? I read every comment. If you are new here, welcome. Stay honest, stay connected, let yourself be cared for.